Looking to make some healthier habits this holiday season? Make sure to check out our Moving Through Midlife community over on Facebook, as we are doing a Planksgiving event where we are doing daily plank workouts. We will be doing an advent for healthy, happy hips this holiday season, and then also have a sugar challenge, a 2-week sugar challenge that you might be interested in. Happy holidays!
Welcome to Raising Healthy Humans, where you as a busy mom can come each week to find information on health and wellness for your family. Enjoy experts discussing tips to help raise children through each phase of life. Gather current information on nutrition and wellness. And listen to Courtney, a personal trainer and founder of FormFit, to provide you with movement and posture tips along the way. It's our goal to help provide you with the information you need to help raise healthy humans.
Today, I had the pleasure of speaking with Sandi of the ecohappiness project. She is here to speak with us about why you may want to consider getting out in nature, the benefits of spending more time in nature, and how we can create more nature habits as a family. I hope you enjoy.
Hi, everyone. My name's Sandi Schwartz. I'm based down here in Florida, although I grew up in New Jersey. And my story actually starts in New Jersey, which is kind of funny because if you think back to the 80s in New Jersey, there was a lot about pollution. I remember the hypodermics washing up on the Jersey Shore from Billy Joel's song. Well, I'm a Jersey girl, and when I was in 10th grade, I cleaned up a local polluted river in my environmental high school group called Nature Defense. And that sparked my interest in saving the planet, so I went on to college and I studied the environment. I thought I was going to be like a water rights lawyer out west. But as many people know, like life kind of takes twists and turns. And I ended up more focused on science communications.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked at the Environmental Protection Agency and the National Academy of Sciences and at a environmental consulting firm, working on the Energy Star program, which is that sticker of energy efficiency on your appliances. So I really was very involved in public understanding of science. And that was my thing for a while. And then while that was all happening, I was also just like a stressed out, anxious kid. And then also it all kind of, hit, big when I went through infertility. And then I had a very difficult first pregnancy. I had preterm labor. And then I recognized later on that I had postpartum anxiety.
Okay.
You hear a lot about postpartum depression.
Mm-hmm.
Me, I was so just like on edge and shaky, and it lasted a long time. And that was really when I had my first like panic attack, in that sort of period of being a new mom. And I think a lot of moms probably have had these experiences and they don't even recognize what's going on. It's, with all the hormones, it changes as well. It takes the turmoil on you. So then I started searching for how can I, feel better that wasn't just popping pills.
Mm-hmm.
And it all brought me back to the concept of positive psychology.
Okay.
And that's really looking like, instead of sitting in, talking about your problems all the time, you're really focusing on what can you do that's positive, such as mindfulness, gratitude practice, feeling the awe, such as awe of nature. Awe is like this amazing emotion that I love to talk about. And also like giving back to your community is a big one, volunteerism. So I started really digging into that and really focusing on those positive components to feel better. And then I came back to my roots, as I like to say, and decided to really focus on positive psychology from the nature perspective.
Okay.
And that's how Eco Happiness was born.
Excellent. And Eco Happiness is what all do you have within Eco Happiness? A website, a book that you have written as well.
Yeah, and it's sort of this term I saw once, but I kind of made up. And it's really about, feeling better, feeling happier and calmer. So really managing mental health through nature connection.
Okay.
And so then I created an Eco Happiness project. I had originally had another blog that was called Happy Science Mom for 6 years. And that was much broader. And that's where all these different components of positive psychology were in. But I found that I was writing so much about nature. I said, I'm going to take the leap and I'm going to rebrand. So Eco Happiness Project was born. And yes, I have a parenting book coming out, also a children's book.
Okay.
Called Sky's Search for Eco Happiness. So that's been fun to work on. And the website that has articles. I'm a freelance writer, and then also the blog posts. So there's tons of information on there for people to peruse.
Okay. And when you're thinking about Eco Happiness, this is obviously for not just the mom, but the children as well. What do you notice are the benefits of getting outside in the fresh air and just getting outside?
Sure. Well, the first thing, I guess, before we get into benefits is what have been the issues and the concerns that have led to this point where people finally have the light bulb and say, maybe we should go outside more. And maybe you've heard of Richard Louv. He's sort of the guru. He coined the term nature deficit disorder about 20 or so years ago. And he's an author and journalist as well. He's actually kind of my personal mentor, because when you decide to write a book, you're kind of like, well, do I have to have, a million letters after my name? And then I saw that someone like Richard Louv, who's also a journalist, he's been able to write numerous books, and he has an entire organization called Children in Nature Network that I'm a member of. And it focuses specifically on this concern that children have not, they're missing out on all the benefits of nature and the issues it's caused, and of course, a lot of it's due to screen time, but also our fears that have happened as moms. And hey, I'm as guilty of that. You're worried about your kids in the front yard because, someone's going to snatch them, so you don't let them play outside like we did as kids.
Grew up as an 80s child. Yeah. That was a big thing.
Yeah. And it actually seemed to switch then, because I remember playing outside for hours, and then there were some issues that had occurred that the parents started to be like, oh, let's keep them in the backyard. And then, so it's even worse and worse with us. But not being outside can cause, attention issues, focus issues, physical issues, obesity, the list goes on and on. And the positives, it's just it's innate. It's who we are, that we just feel better outside. The fresh air, the sunshine, the colors. There's lots of components of nature that we always kind of knew, hey, going to the beach would be relaxing. A lot of people choose the ocean for vacation. But the cool part, and this is why I'm really excited about being involved in this area now, is that there's so much research to back it up. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of studies that show that not only do we feel better, but cortisol levels drop as well when we spend time in nature. So that's, the stress hormone going down, and heart rates and blood pressure. So it really is amazing. And, it's important for our kids to get the break. They need a nature break.
Yeah. Do you think there's a specific time that you need to spend outside to start receiving some of these benefits, or is anything better than nothing?
Very good question. So in 2019, there was a groundbreaking study that really shifted the thinking on this. It was published in Scientific Reports, and it found that spending at least 120 minutes per week in nature is associated with good health and well-being. So that's about 20 minutes a day. And it's kind of like anything else that it's better to kind of, do it consistently. Like they say with mindfulness, that if you only meditate, like if you meditate for 5 hours one day a month, it's not actually as beneficial as 5 or 10 minutes a day. So, I call it building a nature habit. I focus a lot on that, is trying to just look at opportunities in our daily routine to have some more time in nature. That may look like, hey, let's walk to school or bike to school or do homework outside or have dinner outside, or and for all of you in the cold weather, windows are great too, setting up, having the meal right by the window and being mindful of it, saying, hey, look outside, look at the beautiful snow. It's really a lot about just tuning in to our surroundings, and that can make a huge difference.
Okay. And that's one thing that I was thinking as you were speaking, because I've heard people say, like, even if you can't get outside, go look out your window. Do you feel that that is a similar benefit, just being able to look outside?
Yeah, they've done some really neat studies with, for example, so I talk a lot about green exercise, and that's really like exercise outside. But then they would do it, they would, put the treadmill, to have someone running, and then they would have someone, a treadmill at a big, giant window. And then they might have the third option where you're like, watching on a screen, like a virtual reality type of thing. And every of those, options has a benefit.
Okay.
Anytime you're looking at nature. So even, there's studies too about like looking at a plant inside or looking at a beautiful painting of nature. There's a big difference than looking at, a photograph or a painting of nature versus of a building. There's still this reaction, but of course, the more immersed you can be in nature, they found, if you go out into the woods and you're completely detached, it's about 3 days where you are completely and totally like at the height of the benefit. But for all of us busy moms, it's just really, again, like adding a little bit into the day.
Okay.
So yes, a little bit can help. And the virtual reality research is really cool. I one time did this virtual reality experience with my family where we were like under the ocean. And it's like you could reach out and feel, try to touch the whale that was going by. It was really, it was cool.
Really?
And so they're trying to bring that as an option. If it's kind of an interesting topic. It can be controversial, but
yeah,
but it's still better. It's still something.
Okay. But that's so immersed with technology that just feels wrong.
Yeah. Well, I do like, technology is a very complicated issue.
Yeah.
And the way I like to say it, on one hand, we need our tech breaks. On the other hand, tech can be a bridge to engaging our kids into nature. There's a lot of ways that we can use it to get our kids interested.
Yes. I would say the whole Pokemon thing that occurred, that Pokemon Go, that was a huge thing, and it got people outside. Now, it became an issue when they were staring at their phones and walking across the street, but like that was a great option for them to get more children outside and looking for these little characters and stuff.
Yeah. Well, wasn't that such a fad?
Yeah. Yeah.
Even went. Well, the other thing I think is great is it's called citizen science.
Okay.
And so this is, Pokemon's one thing because it's a game, and you're right, they're staring at the phone.
Right.
But citizen science is, there's like apps and there's different programs. And if you just Google it, it's done through like research centers at at universities or the government. And you download like an app, and then you are tasked with, for example, going in your neighborhood and counting the number of butterflies you see, or, when certain, I think it's called bud burst is one of them. And you'll like count, I think in the springtime, like what flowers are blooming in different areas. And so they collect all this data. And so it gives kids, or any ages, the opportunity to participate in the scientific process. But you're also, so it's like you might go out and take pictures of what you're seeing. And so it it's really fun, and it gets kids outside with a
Mhm.
purpose, learning. I did it with my kids not so long ago, and they were just like intrigued by everything they were seeing, and I'm like, oh, this is really great. So that to me is a very good example of how you can bridge that gap between tech and nature.
Right. Yeah, and that's like a scavenger hunt for them, which, I
Yeah.
mean, children love to do these scavenger hunts. So that sounds really interesting. I'm going to make sure to have that information in the show notes as well. So I'm curious to know, like, they talk about grounding where you're getting your feet in nature. How can you speak into that at all? Is there information, like science behind that?
It's so funny. That seems to be a very popular topic these days. I did look at that. That was in my mindfulness chapter research,
Okay.
and I had never done it. But during when the pandemic started, I challenged myself to do something nature related for 100 days straight,
Oh, wow.
thinking that, oh, this thing's only going to last 2 weeks. The pandemic, or I guess that was the point when we knew it was going to last a little longer than 2 weeks. But I can't believe that 100 days came and went so quickly, and here we still are.
Yeah.
So I was really, there were days I'm like, what am I going to do today? And so I did. My daughter and I went in the backyard and took off our shoes and socks and did some earthing. And it's just like a meditative process. There
Mhm.
is some science behind this concept that you're like getting the positive energy and charges from the ground, from the earth. And it can be done on grass, soil, or sand.
Okay.
Um, you know, it's not the most scientifically backed process at this point.
Okay.
They're still doing research. But if you think about it, and I know both of us are in Florida, so we've been to the beach lots, but, going to the beach and standing there and feeling that warm sand on the soles of your feet is just such an amazing,
Mhm.
refreshing experience. So there's something going on.
Right.
Um, and so they do, people who are advocates for this say like, you should be doing it like 30 minutes a day.
Okay. Well, and when you mentioned that, I was thinking to myself, it may be just the whole experience because our senses become heightened, whether you're at the beach, you're hearing the waves break on the shore, your feet are in the warm sand, like that all is a whole sensory, calming sensory experience. And then even
Mhm.
in like a forest, if you were to have your feet on the soil of, the forest, you would then have maybe a different experience of hearing the wind blowing through the trees and the rustling sounds and maybe some movement and just the smells of on the beach and the smells in the forest. There's definitely a different component for being out in nature, very natural smells rather than
Mhm.
these artificial things that we experience in our homes and buildings and such. So,
Yeah. And like, yeah, the cool grass on your
yeah.
feet has a different experience than the warm sand. There's also some really great information about um, a bacteria in soil
Uh-huh.
that benefits us, that we get from both breathing in and then also touching. And, that has been shown to reduce stress and anxiety. And even the scientists are working on potentially, creating like a pill based on this bacteria from
Oh,
soil.
really?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're eating it anyway. You're ingesting it a lot of times in your food.
Right.
So I think it's kind of cool if they can come up with it. They've done a lot of experiments with mice and how it has, they're totally chilled out by it. So
Right.
the earth has lots of natural healing to it. So
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so if we are thinking about getting outside and we're like, okay, what's the first steps? You've given us an activity where we can bring tech in, but do you have other ideas for us as to things that we can do with our children outside?
yes, I have an entire book filled with activity ideas for you. I could go on and on. But what I like to say is start with what you guys, your child, your children, your family, you, whatever, what you already love, know, and love,
Okay.
because a lot of people are intimidated by this concept of connecting to nature. They think it just means camping and hiking and boating and intense, activities, when I'm really letting people know, actually it's not. There's so much you can do and feel so much better. So start with what you love. And I actually have a free quiz on my website,
Okay.
called the Nature Habit Quiz. And it's geared for like a parent to take for their child, but I enjoy taking it as well. Adults do. It asks questions like, what's your child's favorite kind of birthday party? What's, their favorite class in school? And then I have 5 categories, and then you'll get an email that kind of puts them in a category, and then you'll have a list of ideas. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, is your kid already into art? Do they already love to paint? What are they painting and drawing? Are they doing cartoon characters? Okay, great. Well, maybe take them outside and say, hey, why don't you put that cartoon character in a natural setting? Encourage them to paint, draw, create with what they're seeing in nature. Because being there, and that whole concept of mindfulness, creative arts itself is a mindful activity that has a lot of benefits. It's a positive distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you add the nature component to it, it's like, double benefit. So, again, start with what they love. Are they already into sports? Are they on the basketball team and they're playing inside a lot?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe you can get them playing basketball outside, or pick another sport that tends to be done outside instead of inside. Kids who, yoga, instead of doing yoga inside, go outside, do your tree pose, staring at a tree. There's tons of great animal poses. So there's so much that you can do. The science, go back again. If you have a kid who really loves science experiments,
Mm-hmm.
well, get them doing science experiments for nature. We have a lot of environmental problems to solve. So, science fairs at schools love environmental projects. And
Right.
so, and they're just, it's endless.
Right.
But yeah, I do think instead of like one day saying to your family, we're going hiking on a mountain, and they're like, what? I just want to play my video game. You gotta maybe say, hey, let's go do Pokemon, because now it's a video game, but it's outside.
Right.
So slowly introduce activities.
Okay. And that leads me to my next thought, because I feel like when my children were younger, so my children are now older, 16, 14, and 10. When they were younger, it was much easier for me to have them do things because they were so into wanting to know about everything. So we'd go outside and we'd have picnics or stare at the clouds and do fun things like that. But as they get older, they're not as excited about that kind of learning. So do you have recommendations for those of us with older kids? Like and you did say, I mean, with the sports and things like that, but can you think of, is there anything else? One, is that app geared to older kids as well?
Oh,
That
sure,
you
yeah.
had mentioned, the citizen, what was that?
Well, citizen science is a general term. If you Google it, there'll be lots of different projects.
Okay.
And
okay.
yes, they're for all, different ages and levels. And even a lot of them, you need the parent to guide the younger children, but
Okay.
especially high schoolers, like they could use it for school projects.
Oh, okay. Okay. And then other ideas, do you have any other ideas for the older children?
Definitely. And I also have a 13-year-old, so
Okay.
I get it.
Yeah.
And in some ways it's easier because now he knows, like, when he needs outside time, he just goes and plays basketball. He's like, bye, I'm going to play basketball. And it's like, okay, I don't have to like be there and
Right.
watch anymore.
True.
So there's a little more freedom. But yes, a lot of schools do require volunteer hours, community service hours.
Mm-hmm.
So I did include an entire chapter on environmental volunteering, the whole concept of what can you do that's volunteer work connecting to nature.
Oh, okay.
And so that, and there's not a lot out there. Like when kids need to you know, meet the requirement, a lot of times it's like, where do they begin?
Right.
And, for my research, I was looking for all these, what books are out there about kids and volunteer projects. And yeah, there's not a lot. So I wanted to offer that as an option. There's farms, if you live near local
Mm.
farms that need help. There's community gardens. There's simply, like walking a neighbor, an elderly or ill neighbor's dog, and doing it instead of being like, hey, I'm a pet walker and want to get paid, doing it as a community service. There's volunteering with your pet. There's a whole system for that in place for people. You have to be trained to do that, but there's a lot of options, that where teens can go and do that and, just check with the age requirements or, sometimes you have to do it with them, but usually by 16, they can do it on their own.
Right.
So I think that's a really great opportunity, when they're mature enough to really, benefit from that entire experience.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is, like, I really think older kids, well, my kids go to overnight camp, and that is an amazing, any kind of camp experience is incredible and hugely beneficial for them in so many ways, but linked to nature, like it challenges them to do, things out of the box, that, like a ropes course and canoeing and all these things that they may not have been exposed to. So I do recommend, there are scholarships available to the camp. So, don't think that, if there's a financial constraint, there's still options. And even if it's just for like a week, 1 week in the summer or during winter break or spring break, like I really think parents should, consider that as an option. But then also, like, kids, like, not all kids, but a lot of teens want to be challenged, or they want to, do something exciting and thrilling.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of activities you could say, hey, let's get a group of your friends together and, let's get in the car and drive an hour and go do X. Again, it could be canoeing, hiking, mountain biking, surfing, anything that's more of this adventure area, that I think that the older kids would be more interested in doing. I remember going snowboarding in Pennsylvania as a kid, and that was thrilling. That was something I haven't done in a long time, but it was cool. I actually liked snowboarding better than skiing because you have like more control. But I think that's a way to intrigue the older kids.
Okay. And when you mentioned the cold air, I'm wondering, those of us or those people that might be listening that are in areas that are colder, do you have recommendations for them as well as to what they can do? Obviously snowboarding and skiing and things like that, but that can get very expensive as well. Are there things that you recommend that they can do in the wintertime specifically?
Well, this is not my area of expertise because I did grow up in New Jersey, but I was always a baby about the cold. And now I'm in Florida. So I don't, there are lots of people who are constantly writing about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I do address, there are some clear barriers to outside time, which
Mm-hmm.
includes weather. And it can be too hot, it can be too wet, it can be too cold. And the bottom line is, dress appropriately. And, you can still, just dress heavy and go for a walk. I think there's nothing more special than a winter walk on the beach, right? Where it's like deserted and, you're able to see it from a different perspective. So yeah, you're not going to go out in a dangerous situation, but people do need to kind of, I think, challenge themselves, get a little bit of a harder shell and just like, try that. But other activities during the winter, again, you can, if you have, let's say, an indoor cycle or a treadmill inside, try to put it near a window where you're facing the window, because it is just going to make your life so much better. And, I remember really struggling with seasonal affective disorder, SAD, growing
Yep.
up. Yeah. And so it's the light is also very important to make sure that you're getting enough light.
Hmm.
Um, and uh, so, yeah, it's really getting creative and science museums. That's another thing for the
Okay.
cold weather, go to museums, go to, if there's indoor gardens, aviaries, which are birds inside. We went to a fabulous one in Niagara Falls, and it's cold in Niagara Falls. We were
Yeah.
there in the summer, but right now you could go there and look at the gorgeous falls and then enjoy an indoor, museum. So
Okay.
it's being creative and
Right.
going with the seasons.
Yes. Well, and when you were mentioning the um, environmental effects, that's not what I'm wanting to say. Well, I guess so. I was thinking to myself, and how we have, those of us who are in the AC all the time, we have become, um, our bodies don't know how to adapt any longer. Have you learned about this, or with the
Yeah, well,
science, or
living in
yeah,
Florida, your body changes, and then when it does get cold, it's like it's so foreign,
right.
right?
Yeah. And how it's important for us to challenge our bodies. It's like
Mm-hmm.
children, when you're going out and it's 60, well, we're both in Florida. So when we're going outside at 60 degrees, we're both wearing sweatshirts. But the kids are wearing shorts and they don't feel it. And they haven't had this adaptive response quite yet, like we do, where we start to get too comfortable with this specific degrees. And then when you
Mm-hmm.
go outside, you're actually challenging your body in a different way to have to, get used to that. It's a great way to challenge your body. I talk about movement a lot, and that's
Mm.
one thing that you are able to do. Like when you go outside, it changes the way your body has to respond, which is a sense of movement as well. So,
Very interesting. Yeah. And there's a great book, There's No Such Thing as Bad Weather, which is another like
ah,
nature parenting book. Um, and she's over in, is it Finland, with her kids, and
okay.
clearly, people have different experiences depending on where they live.
Mhm.
I mean, how about all the people up north, where it's a snowy background, but they're sitting in the hot tubs outside?
Mm.
So, like when I think of that, I think I'm going to get sick from that. But, they do it all the time. And, that's another thing I was going to say. Water is,
Mm.
whether obviously natural water, ocean, lakes are going to be more beneficial. But the whole concept of water and like floating and feeling light and free, so if you do have access to like a local community center indoor pool, like that's another way to kind of connect to a nature or natural concept, even in the winter.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, can you tell me a little bit about the book and where we can find you, where we can learn more from you?
Sure. Yes. So the book, it goes through why nature's so beneficial, some of the real specifics of things like the colors, the textures, all the sensory experiences.
Okay.
And so that you start with that. And then I take you through different topics. So mindfulness, all and gratitude, food. So I'll jump into that bit about the soil benefits and gardening and other ways to connect to food, and animals, and so creative arts. And so each chapter looks at why it's beneficial, like why is mindfulness itself beneficial,
Okay.
and then mindfulness of using nature. And so then I funnel it down, and then I go through all kinds of activities. Some are a little quirkier than others, like cow cuddling and forest bathing, some cutting edge cool things that people can try. And then at the end of each chapter, there's a checklist as well.
Okay.
So yeah, so you can, kind of turn that into any experience you want as a family. And there's some great stories in there. I've interviewed some wonderful people working on, amazing therapy options through nature, like equine therapy with horses,
Mm-hmm.
horticultural therapy. So there's kind of like different levels,
Okay.
there's just the level of, hey, I want to just bond with my kids outside. And then it gets to the level of, my child is really struggling with anxiety. What can I do? And then how can I get professional help? And in the realm of nature therapy. So
Mm.
yeah,
Okay.
there's really like a whole gamut of options
Okay.
for feeling happier and calmer with nature.
Excellent. Thank you for all of that information. And I really like the information in regards to like if your child is dealing with something specific and you're thinking like anxiety, depression, those types of things, ADHD would like
Yes.
that. Okay. Okay. All
And
of
I
it.
do, and I say it up front, obviously, if your child is struggling, if you're struggling, seek out professional help. Nature is not end all be all solution, but it
Right.
is part of the solution.
Mhm.
Um, so it can go hand in hand with therapy, go hand in hand with medication. And then it could also be used preventatively. If you see that your child is starting to be stressed, like think about, hey, why don't we do the homework outside and then go for
Mhm.
a walk? And so just kind of being attuned to it to know before it does get, more serious, that you can
Right.
use it as a way to kind of keep them balanced.
Okay.
Um, and then I also have this children's book as well. And the cool
Uh-huh.
part about that is it's about a little girl's search for happiness through her watching her friends who happen to be on the beach because she lives by the beach, lucky her. But doing these, eco happy activities like painting a sunset, doing outdoor yoga. And so I think it's a great way for parents to start the conversation with kids
Okay.
about, how are they feeling? Because she's feeling pretty blue in the beginning. And then, what can you do to help you feel better? And, getting outside is part of that
Right.
solution.
Perfect. And website, Eco Happiness Project.
ecohappinessproject.com.
Okay. And are
And
you
there's,
on any other platforms?
yes, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Get Eco Happiness.
Okay. And I'll make sure everything's in the show notes as well for you. And do you have
Great.
anything that you want to make sure that our listeners know before you leave us?
Yeah, nature is for everybody, all kinds of people, and there are a lot of people who have a lot of barriers to reaching
Mm.
nature, financial, um, social, all kinds of things. But nature is free. It's there. Just step outside, look out the window. There's endless resources free online, tons of even and it's for everyone, no matter where you live. That's also my message. Like I'm trying to reach a lot of suburbanites, but also the people living in cities, because
Mhm.
even the most urban, dirtiest, populated city, they have parks, they have zoos, they have uh, gardens, and it's just, really seeking it out. And the other thing is when you do this with your kid, it's benefiting you.
Mhm.
This is for all of us. We all need to feel happier and calmer, especially in these crazy times. So
Yeah.
tap into some nature and feel better.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to our podcast. I hope you found this information valuable and hope that you are able to immediately use some of the information that was provided. Make sure to check out the show notes for all the links that we discussed today. I also wanted to let you know that if you are a mom who is wanting to begin to start making healthier choices, but are not sure where to start or don't feel like you have a lot of time, I want to let you know that I offer a 5-day challenge that is free for you to get started on making small changes each day. It provides you with a quick 5-minute movement or workout routine, along with a 5-day meal plan with family-friendly meals you will enjoy, and a tip that will help you to find ways to move and live healthier. Just head to formfitnaples.com/fitin5 to sign up. Again, that information will be in our show notes, so just head there, click on that link, and you'll be able to get started with the 5-day challenge immediately. Now make sure to go out and enjoy your day while practicing small, healthy choices that will make lasting changes.